In a world that often feels like it's just spiraling right out of control, where misinformation just spreads like wildfire and society grapples with the fallout of, divisive politics and economic inequality and social injustices, I've come to a rather controversial conclusion that being judgmental can be a positive force, a necessary ingredient in the recipe for societal change. And before you roll your eyes and dismiss me as a cynic or a contrarian, just hear me out. I'm not advocating for mindless negative judgment. This is about cultivating discernment, discerning perspectives. It's about being intentional with our judgments in a way that challenges complacency and simply promotes accountability. Let's let's first address what being judgmental really means. Often it's conflated with negativity, as in, she's so judgmental. But what if we rehabilitate that word? What if we see it not as an indication of like closed mindedness, but maybe as an opportunity for critical thinking? Like when we judge, we assess values, behaviors, and actions. It's about understanding right from wrong, good from bad, constructive from destructive. And in today's complex landscape, this fucked up world, I think a little judgment can act as a compass, guiding us through moral quandaries, if you like, and ethical dilemmas. Without any form of judgment, how on earth can we establish standards for ourselves, our communities, or even the world at large? I guess we should talk about accountability. We live in a time where accountability is often dropped from the equation. Politicians dodge responsibilities for their actions. Corporations prioritize profits over people. And, like social media thrives on sensationalism of like half truths and sometimes just even outright lies. When I look around, I see a desperate need for someone or many someones, to step up and say enough is enough. And I think this is where being judgmental enters the ring. When we evaluate the actions of those in power critically, we hold them to account. Without judgment, we slide into moral ambiguity and enabling harmful behaviors to continue unchecked. We need to wrestle with our judgments, analyze them, and then speak up when we see injustices or just even blatant hypocrisy. And social media has just become this completely double-edged sword. I mean, it can amplify these marginalized voices and democratize information, but it can also perpetuate ignorance and incite outrage. But what if we flip this narrative when people share these hateful memes, or when influencers spread misinformation? Isn't our responsibility to be like judgmental on this? I mean, judging bad behavior is not the same as judging individuals. I guess it's about pushing back against like these harmful narratives and fostering a culture that values truth and compassion. When we call out harmful rhetoric, we remind ourselves that words have weight, that ultimately shapes the world we live in. So, in a society yearning for change, judgment can be a tool to illuminate the wrongs that need to be fixed, right? And let's not overlook the everyday interactions that are occurring in our lives. Like, imagine the time you overheard a friend perpetuating a rumor or making an insensitive comment about someone's appearance or maybe their background. And what do? You just kind of smile and nod, and you're just letting that toxicity seep into your environment. Or do you exercise your right to be judgmental and point it out? Like, confronting these harmful attitudes and behaviors, because that's what judgment does. You help foster open dialogues, and you challenge prejudice. If we shy away from being judgmental, we can let ignorance fester, allowing that narrow-minded perspective to become the norm. And it's wrong. I guess being judgmental can also promote personal growth. It's essential to evaluate our beliefs and choices critically. Like, judgment encourages self-reflection. When we assess our actions and our attitudes, we can discern what serves us and what does not. It forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about ourselves and strive to be better individuals. I mean, imagine if we discarded all forms of judgment. How would we know we've crossed the line or hurt someone? Without this feedback loop, we risk stagnation and frankly falling prey to complacency. And in today's world where misinformation is just rampant, discernment becomes critical. I mean, we must develop the skill to differentiate between what is fact and what is fiction. This requires us to be judgmental in our consumption of information. We can't accept everything at face value. We have to ask questions. We have to seek evidence and hold people accountable for their words. Our society has an obligation to cultivate informed citizens, and that's a task that involves a fair bit of judgment. If we didn't apply critical thinking and judgment to what we hear, then we'd simply be at the mercy of anyone eager enough to spin a tale on us. Beyond the realm of accountability and self-growth lies the unsung power of compassion, which can coexist with judgment. You can criticize a behavior while still recognizing that everyone is on their journey that's unique to them. But being judgmental doesn't breed hatred. Rather, it allows us to hold others accountable while giving them space for transformation. When we stand up against injustice, it doesn't mean we dehumanize the person making the mistakes. In fact, it's actually an opportunity to uplift them as we encourage positive change. I think this is where let's flip the script here. So the people who often claim that we should no longer be judgmental might be actually setting an extremely low bar for humanity. In our effort to be kind and inclusive, we've become complicit. Societal change requires courage, and I argue that it thrives on constructive judgment. It empowers individuals to stand against racism or sexism or homophobia or other forms of discrimination. But if we just recoil from judgment, it makes it too easy for oppressive ideologies to just persist unchecked. We have to remember that judgment doesn't always come from a place of superiority. Sometimes it springs from a place of love or even just a desire for a better world. So let's reclaim judgment. Let's breathe some life back into it. So instead of viewing it as a vice, let's recognize its capacity to promote reflection, to instigate accountability, and maybe to inspire some growth. In our quest for a more just and compassionate world, we'll need to be discerning. And we must be brave enough to acknowledge the problems around us and call them out when we see them. In this chaotic world we maneuver, a little judgment can act as like a beacon of hope, kind of guiding us towards understanding and improvement in ways that blind passivity cannot. I guess, in essence, judgment, when exercised responsibly, can become a vehicle for compassion, conversation, and I guess even change. In a fucked up world craving transformation, let's not shy away from being judgmental. Let's just wield it wisely as a tool for betterment of ourselves, our communities, our society as a whole. So next time someone questions your judgment, stand tall. Wear it like the armor in the quest for justice and authenticity, because in a world that often just feels completely upside down, backwards, and crazy, sometimes having the courage to judge is just the first step in, getting things set right.